I added Dinoco into F1 22 MyTeam and simulated through 10 seasons to see if they could win a championship. Before we begin, YouTube Analytics says that 100% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. So if that's you, press the red subscribe button and it will be greatly appreciated. In my last video, I added Lightning McQueen and Rusties into F1 and the reception has just been absolutely insane. So I thought I would stick with the Cars universe and add the most popular team of Dinoco. So I loaded up a new MyTeam save, created the main driver of Strip Weathers, aka the King, set all the development settings to automatic and started simulating through 10 seasons. The team will use this livery for the 10 seasons, as well as using a Mercedes engine. No idea why, I just picked Mercedes. The team will start as a newcomer, meaning there will not be a lot of finances available from the start. So for the first season, the King will be paired alongside the rookie of Theo Pourchaire. Now let's get into the simulation. Starting off in Season 1 with all drivers at their current teams for the 2022 season. In this first season, Red Bull managed to come out on top in the Constructors' Championship with their driver of Max Verstappen taking the Drivers' Championship. He finished the season with 12 wins as well as the sprint in Imola. George Russell finished in P2 after winning his first races in Formula 1, with Charles Leclerc taking 3 wins for P3. Lando Norris wins his first race as well as 2 others. Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton both take 1 win for P5 and P6 in the standings. Dinoco avoid finishing last in their first season of F1, with the King scoring 2 points to finish P16 and help Dinoco to P10 in the Constructors. The second driver of Theo Pourchaire was unlucky to not score any points this season as he finished plumb last in P22. At the end of the season, some regulation changes will be coming into effect, more specifically to the aerodynamics and powertrain departments. The oldest driver of the grid in Fernando Alonso will retire at the end of the season, causing a large shake-up within teams. Firstly, the reigning champion of Max Verstappen makes the move away from Red Bull to fill the vacant Alpine seat. This allows Daniel Ricciardo to return to the Red Bull and teams next year with Sergio Perez. The 4-time champion of Sebastian Vettel makes a switch to McLaren in hopes of winning more races and championships. Valtteri Bottas moves to the Aston Martin with Esteban Ocon moving to the Alfa Romeo. Zhou Guanyu moves to Williams with Nicholas Latifi swapping the other way. The open seat in the Alpine is then taken by Theo Pourchaire as Dinoco go on to sign another rookie in the form of Oscar Piastri.
It's broken!
Moving on into Season 2, and it's McLaren that return to glory as they win the Constructors' Championship. The two drivers combined managed to win 18 out of 22 races, with Lando Norris taking his first ever championship after 11 wins. Sebastian Vettel returns to winning ways as he manages to take McLaren's other 7 wins. This allows McLaren to take a clean sweep with the Constructors as well as the top 2 spots in the drivers' standings. Charles Leclerc managed to win another 3 races this season for P3 in the championship. So Lewis Hamilton continues his streak of winning at least 1 race in every season he's competed in, with Daniel Ricciardo securing the fastest lap point to finish P8 in his return to Red Bull. Dinoco have a terrible season this year by scoring 0 points and finishing last in the Constructors. The King takes P21 in the driver's standings with Oscar Piastri P22. Hopefully, the regulation changes to the chassis and durability departments allow the team to improve going into Season 3. Sergio Perez hangs up his steering wheel and retires at the end of the season. The Aston Martin driver of Valtteri Bottas will take his seat at Red Bull, with Daniel Ricciardo moving the other way. Oscar Piastri leaves Dinoco and fills the vacant seat in the Red Bull, with a triangle of transfers occurring, starting with Zhou Guanyu returning to Alfa Romeo, Theo Pourchaire moving from the Alpine into the Williams, with Alfa Romeo driver Nicholas Latifi moving into the Alpine. Oscar Piastri's manager of Mark Webber returns to Formula 1 and fills the final seat on the grid in the vacant Dinoco team.
Performance athlete, athletes sweat, sweat baby, sweat.
Going into Season 3, and the regulation changes didn't seem to stop McLaren as they continued to win their 2nd consecutive Constructors' Championship, this time taking all 22 wins. However, it was the German driver of Sebastian Vettel who would go on to win the Drivers' Championship for the 5th time in his career, despite only winning 8 races compared to his teammate Lando Norris winning 14 races in the season. Pure consistency from Seb Vettel, never dropping lower than 2nd, meant he takes the championship even with 6 less wins. The Ferraris followed with P2 in the Constructors with Charles Leclerc in P3 and Carlos Sainz in P4. Dinoco had a stronger season this year as they move up to P8 in the Constructors' Championship with 12 points. Strip the King Weathers secured P12 after securing 9 points throughout the season, with his teammate Mark Webber scoring 3 to finish in P16. There's no regulation changes that are going to be in effect at the end of this season, however there are some driver moves. Firstly, the McLaren driver of Lando Norris decided to leave McLaren as he swapped seats to the Alfa Romeo with Zhou Guanyu. Another triangle of driver moves happens with Esteban Ocon moving to the Haas, Theo Pourchaire moving to Alfa Romeo, and Mick Schumacher moving to Williams. Season 4 and the McLaren dominance continues as they win their third title in a row. There was more race winners this year though, as there were 4 different race winners. Sebastian Vettel wins another Drivers' Championship after securing 16 wins throughout the season. His teammate of Zhou Guanyu secured his first ever wins in the F1 with his new team. He also secured his highest ever finish in the Drivers' Championship as he finished P3. Charles Leclerc finished his season in P2 after winning 3 races as well as a sprint. George Russell takes the final win in the Mercedes to finish P4. Since leaving Red Bull, Max Verstappen hasn't had the best of times in the Alpine, but does manage to finish P7 despite not having a very fast car. Dinoco continues to improve this season as they climbed 2 places in the Constructors to a solid P6. Strip Weathers finished in P10 with 35 points, with his teammate of Mark Webber close behind with 28 points for P11. Huge regulation changes were to be made at the end of this season, affecting all performance departments of aerodynamics, chassis and the powertrain. 2 drivers are also retiring at the end of the season, those being the Aston Martin driver of Daniel Ricciardo and the Dinoco driver of Mark Webber. Replacing Ricciardo at Aston Martin will be the Red Bull driver of Oscar Piastri, allowing Pierre Gasly to make his return to the senior Red Bull team. This leaves an open seat in the AlphaTauri for Lance Stroll to take. This opens a seat for Kevin Magnussen to move away from the Haas into the Aston Martin. The vacant Haas seat is then taken by the rookie Robert Schwartzman, and the open seat in the Dinoco team is then taken by the Spaniard of Carlos Sainz. This allows another rookie in Dan Tickton to take the final seat for Ferrari. Once again, the regulation changes didn't have an effect on the final winners, McLaren and Sebastian Vettel dominating once again. This season, Vettel managed to win 21 out of 22 races, with his teammate Zhou Guanyu taking the final win. Seb also managed to take all 3 sprint wins as well as 18 fastest laps. This season also marks the first time a Dinoco driver has taken an extra point for the fastest lap, as the King managed one in Canada. The rest of the grid was pretty shaken up after this season's regulation changes, with AlphaTauri finishing a surprising P2 just 1 point ahead of Alfa Romeo in P3. Max Verstappen and Alpine are once again trying to stay in contention, with Alpine finishing P4 and Max Verstappen in P6. Mercedes struggled again this year, with Lewis Hamilton failing to make the top half of the grid at the end of the season. However, his teammate of George Russell secured a P8 to help Mercedes finish just above Dinoco. P9 and P11 for the Dinoco drivers, with Carlos Sainz performing well in his debut season with the team, but the stronger teams of Ferrari and Red Bull fall victim to losing car development this season as they drop below the Dinoco team to P7 and P8. At the end of the season, however, there will be no regulation changes, allowing those teams to possibly rise back to the top. Looking to the driver moves, firstly with the retirement of the current Red Bull driver of Valtteri Bottas. The other Red Bull driver of Pierre Gasly also moves away from the team and moves to Ferrari after Dan Tickton was made a free agent. 2 rookies will be taking their seats in the Red Bull team, firstly the Kiwi of Liam Lawson, as well as the Dutch driver of Richard Verschoor. Alfa Romeo and Dinoco have come to an agreement, meaning the Dinoco driver of Carlos Sainz heads to Alfa Romeo, with Lando Norris moving the opposite way. Moving into Season 6, and we actually see something that hasn't happened before in these simulation videos. There were some driver transfers midway through the season. Firstly, the Red Bull driver of Liam Lawson gets dropped, making his way for Max Verstappen to return to the Red Bull. This also opens a seat in the Alpine for Dan Tickton to make a return to Formula 1 and fill the seat. Now looking at the results this season, and it's McLaren that win the Constructors once again, but they were closely followed by Dinoco as they reached their highest finish position. The signing of Lando Norris was monumental to this, as he wins a Drivers' Championship for the second time in his career. He secured 11 wins throughout the season, with his former teammate of Sebastian Vettel not being able to keep up with only 7 wins. The rest of the wins were taken by 4 other drivers, with Zhou Guanyu, Pierre Gasly, Max Verstappen and George Russell all taking 1 win each. Ferrari managed to rise back to P3 after finishing P7 last year, after the driver pairing of Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly seemed to work well. Strip Weathers has been destroyed by his teammate as he finished P7 with just 1 fastest lap, still waiting on that first win. At the end of the season, there'll be some regulation changes, but only to the durability department, so it shouldn't really change too much. 2 drivers are to retire at the end of the season, with Sir Lewis Hamilton finally retiring from the sport, with the Haas driver of Robert Schwartzman taking a seat in the Mercedes. This allows Liam Lawson to return to F1 after being dropped halfway through the season. Charles Leclerc also retires from F1, leaving an open seat in the Ferrari for Jehan Daruvala to make his debut. A straight driver swap is made between Alfa Romeo and Red Bull as Richard Verschoor moves to Alfa Romeo with Carlos Sainz moving to Red Bull. Once again, in this season, there are a bunch of mid-season driver moves. Firstly, Robert Schwartzman didn't impress at Mercedes, so was dropped after just 11 races, with Max Verstappen seemingly joining their enemy as he moves away from Red Bull. This allows Esteban Ocon to move into the open Red Bull seat, with Jehan Daruvala moving to Haas. This means Carlos Sainz can return to the Ferrari, with Kevin Magnussen moving into the Red Bull, thus opening a seat in the Aston Martin for Liam Lawson to take, allowing Enzo Fittipaldi to make his Formula 1 debut with Haas. Looking at the results for this season, and Dinoco have won the Constructors' Championship. It was a close battle between the top drivers of Lando Norris and Sebastian Vettel. However, the Dinoco driver wins the second consecutive Drivers' Championship. Both Lando and Seb managed to win 9 races each, with Max Verstappen winning a race in the Red Bull before moving to Mercedes, with his replacement of Esteban Ocon also winning a race this season. Max's new teammate of George Russell wins the last 2 races of the season, with Dinoco's first Constructors' Championship as a result of Lando's P1 and the King's P7 beating out McLaren by just 6 points. There were no regulation changes at the end of this season, but of course there were some driver moves. Firstly, a straight swap between Ferrari and Dinoco means Gasly and Lando Norris will switch teams for Season 8. The Haas driver of Jehan Daruvala, as well as the Red Bull driver of Kevin Magnussen, both lose their seats in Formula 1. Yuki Tsunoda is then promoted into the senior Red Bull team, with Felipe Drugovich making his debut with AlphaTauri next season. Robert Schwartzman manages to find his way back into Formula 1 by taking the remaining Haas seat. It seems that mid-season transfers have become a regular occurrence now. However, there was just one move this mid-season. Felipe Drugovich was dropped by AlphaTauri and replaced by Jehan Daruvala. Signing Pierre Gasly maybe wasn't the best move, as this allowed McLaren to return to Constructors' glory, as well as Sebastian Vettel returning to the top of the driver standings. He managed to win 13 races this season, even with Pierre Gasly putting up a fight. Gasly managed 7 wins this season and finished P2 by just 99 points. Alpine have really struggled since losing Max Verstappen, as they finished dead last on 0 points. Fastest laps were shared around, with 7 for Vettel, 4 for Strick Revers, 3 for Zhou and Gasly, 2 for Norris, and Verstappen, Tsunoda and Lance Stroll all taking 1 each. Despite the strong work from Pierre Gasly, Dinoco's main driver in Strick Revers hasn't been able to do anything near the calibre of his teammate in recent seasons, finishing only P8 in the drivers, over 250 points behind Gasly. Hopefully, Dinoco can regain the constructors or adapting to the regulation changes which will be coming in at the effect of this season, more specifically to the chassis and powertrain departments. AlphaTauri believe they made a mistake in dropping Drugovich by signing Daruvala as they reversed that decision at the end of the season. The Mercedes driver of Max Verstappen decides to retire at the end of the season, with the tyre driver of Alex Albon moving into the Mercedes. The open seat in the Williams allows Kevin Magnussen to return to Formula 1 after a year away from the sport. Despite the regulation changes, McLaren are still able to retain their Constructors' Championship for the 7th time this simulation. However, it is a Dinoco driver of Pierre Gasly who takes his first ever Drivers' Championship, scoring 26 more points than P2 of Sebastian Vettel. Gasly managed to secure 8 wins this season, as well as 9 fastest laps. Vettel won 7 races, 1 sprint, and 1 fastest lap. Lando Norris in the Ferrari secured 5 wins this season, as well as a sprint and 3 fastest laps. Zhou Guanyu in the other McLaren takes the final 2 wins and leaves Strick Revers still looking for his first win in Formula 1. He finished P7 in the drivers, so there is some consistency, but not what he or the team would prefer. Enzo Fittipaldi surprised everyone as he manages to finish P9 in the Drivers' Championship in just his second full season of F1. Haas actually managed to finish above Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, despite Red Bull having the more experienced drivers of Tsunoda and Ocon. Unfortunately, there are no regulation changes going into the final season of the simulation, so it reduces the chance of a crazy winner. But before we look at that, let's look at the driver transfers. Firstly, the Ferrari driver of Carlos Sainz will be retiring from F1, allowing Jehan Daruvala to return to the Ferrari team. A triangle of transfers have happened at the top of the grid, with Lando Norris returning to McLaren as Sebastian Vettel moves to Dinoco, and Pierre Gasly returning to Ferrari. Before we got on to the final stand-ins for the final season, there was quite a bit of commotion with mid-season transfers. Firstly, Nicholas Latifi takes Felipe Drugovich's seat in the AlphaTauri, allowing Magnussen to move to Alpine. Oscar Piastri moves from Aston Martin to Williams, meaning Felipe Drugovich will still have a seat in F1, but at Aston Martin. Finally, the Williams driver of Mick Schumacher swapped seats with the current Ferrari driver of Johan de Ruvela. In the final season then, McLaren remain on top. Lando Norris wins the driver's title on his return to McLaren after winning 16 races this season. Sebastian Vettel takes his Dinoco car to P2 after winning just 2 races. The other McLaren of Zhou Guanyu takes 3 races with P3, and George Russell close behind with 1 win. Stuart Weathers finished in P5, which may be his best finish in the whole 10 seasons. Still go this whole 10 years without winning a Formula 1 race. He does, however, score 5 fastest laps this season. Alpine struggled again and finished in last place with 0 points, joined by Alfa Romeo in P10. Due to this being the final season of the simulation, there will be no driver moves or regulations since there's no season 11. But we'll move on to the final stats for the whole decade. As we move on to the final stats, we can see just how dominating McLaren have been, winning 8 Constructors' Championships. Red Bull managed to secure their only title in Season 1, and Dinoco disrupted McLaren for their title in Season 7. There were 4 different drivers to win a Drivers' Championship this simulation, with Max Verstappen retiring as a 2-time champion, Pierre Gasly winning his only title on Season 9. The other 8 seasons were split equally between the young Brit of Lando Norris and the veteran of Sebastian Vettel. They both win 4 championships each, making Lando Norris tied with Alan Prost. Sebastian Vettel, on the other hand, who, in contrary to real life, has yet to retire and has become the first ever 8-time champion, winning more than both Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher, and he's still racing at 44 years old. Looking at the race winners, and there was a lot more diverse than any of these videos, with 10 different drivers winning at least 1 race this season. Sebastian Vettel wins 90 out of the 220 races in this simulation to take the most wins ever. Lando Norris finished on 69 wins, which I'm sure he'd be quite happy with. And then there's a rather large gap to P3 to Pierre Gasly. He only managed to win 16 races, closely followed by Max Verstappen, who struggled to get wins after his move to Alpine early on, as he gets 14. Charles Leclerc, George Russell and Zhou Guanyu all finished with 9 wins, Hamilton on 2 and Perez and Ocon on 1 each. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it would be much appreciated. I'm so close to reaching monetization on this channel, and it's just absolutely crazy. My last 2 videos have been insane. I've just hit 600 subscribers as I'm recording this now, and it's just absolutely insane. I cannot thank you enough. So if you're not subscribed, click the button below, press the subscribe button, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, it'll all be in the description below. Don't forget to leave a like on this video. Comment any more suggestions for what other teams you want to see me do. Goodbye.